Although New York is primarily associated with giant skyscrapers, a real symbol of the rebellious spirit lying on the ground near the tobacco shop in the quarter, Greenwich Village, West Manhattan. This is obviously not the Statue of Liberty, but New Yorkers love this place and related urban legend, says Andrew Berman, president of the Greenwich Wisecock Society for the Preservation of Historical Monuments. At first glance, it is quite an inconspicuous intersection. Yellow cabs rush past the Starbucks in front of tobacco shops, behind which stands the Tower of the World Trade Center. At the end of the X century it became a center of art and one of the most colorful cultural centers of New York. If you were here in 1910, you would see a completely different urban landscape. 7th Avenue, which runs along the whole of Manhattan, was completed half a kilometer to the north of Greenwich Village and, therefore, the quarter was much more calm and comfortable. Where now paving scene Secret Triangle, stood a dwelling house, built by Philadelphia native David Hess, who died 3 years earlier, in 1907. In the early 20th century in New York occurred dramatic changes. The recently opened Penn Station and a train tunnel under the Hudson bring a huge number of passengers into the heart of Manhattan. The city government has decided to extend 7th Avenue and the subway line running under it, in the south, to improve communication between the lower and middle Manhattan, two main shopping malls in the city. She claimed that the government has the right to dispose of the private property of its citizens for public purposes, such as building roads or schools, explains Jonathan Houghton, the attorney for the alienation of ownership of one of the oldest law firms in the city. The next few years, Jesse bravely fought against the order, but, to stop the law on state alienation of property in New York is extremely difficult, explains Houghton. Until 1913 Jesse has exhausted all legal ways. When the government realized what had happened, she asked the family to give a small piece of land, because he still had no commercial value. But Jesse and again refused. An article in the Philadelphia Evening Ledger of July 29, 1922, reported that the authorities of New York urged the company Hess estate to pay the tax arrears for the land that remained in their ownership. The mosaic pavement was made on July 26, 1922. As noted in the New York Newsday the next day, the annual tax for the triangle was valued at $100. In the late 1940s, Shop Village Cigars bought the triangle for $1,000, which adjusted for inflation today would be equal to approximately $17,500. Now the details your favorite urban legend began to blur. Who, for example, argues that David Hess personally fought with the government of New York.